Welcome to the Brain Wealth Podcast with your host, Bryan Repple. Bryan, it's good to be with you again. Interesting podcast today that you've got in mind. I like the idea.
Yeah, well, Bill, it's kind of we've gone a few months, and it's always great to come back to kind of like your roots. Who are you? What do you do?
Yeah.
You kind of hear a lot of different topics. So I think that's just kind of what we're going to go through today, is covering some of our foundational, what makes Repple Wealth Group.
Yeah, no. And I understand that a lot of your clients know this already, obviously. Hopefully they've got a good, strong relationship with you and they know what you're doing and what you mean to them. But some of our listeners may not know the Repple Group and some may be new clients. So let's start with like really simple stuff. Like, why the Repple Wealth Group and what do you do, Bryan?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I appreciate that because I think it's just healthy for everyone to hear it. Hear a little bit of our story and what it is we do. And I'm going to get into some of those strategies and some of that conversation that makes us different and unique. But what's really cool is my father started our firm back in 1982. That's the parent company. So 1982, that's 40 some years we've been in business with offices all around the country. I came in business in the financial services industry in 1998. So now 26 years working with clients, teaching and training advisors, and been in that space. And I always felt like one of the things I've learned is I thought we've always had a very unique approach in that we help people find money that they are currently, this is one of our strategies, helping them find money that they are transferring unknowingly and unnecessarily. These are wealth transfers. Now, what you didn't hear was we help them with products. We help them with this financial instrument. No, the core foundation, what we established our practice on 40 years ago, because my father has a tax practice, that was our root, was really looking at places where people may be transferring wealth. I want to make sure everybody hears this, unknowingly and unnecessarily. So I kind of share with it because maybe this will help. Like, what does that even mean?
I have to admit, I'm sitting here going, okay, I thought when you used wealth transfer, I'm thinking, understand what wealth transfer is. That's like me transferring the wealth to my children. And then you were like, you started off on a totally different tangent for me and it threw me. It's like, what is losing money unknowingly and unnecessarily? What is this?
Well, we'll talk about some of those wealth transfers in a minute because your children really aren't a wealth transfer. We'll talk about who is actually getting that money in a minute. That really makes us unique. But, when I looked at this principle of transferring wealth unknowingly and unnecessarily, kind of went back and said, what does the industry look at? The financial services industry, how do they see it? How do they have this conversation with clients? And generally, it's based upon, let us help you find a better product that may pay a higher return, sometimes requiring you to take more risk. That's kind of the general conversation. That's why a lot of people get a little steered away saying, it's not about another product. It's not about another financial instrument. Maybe there's something else someone's looking for. And we look at saying, how can people be more efficient just by avoiding unnecessary losses?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we all want to do that. I can relate to that. Yeah.
And those losses are sometimes just by transferring wealth unknown. So here's an example. If you've ever washed your car outside your home and you're like, all right, you're going to go get a bucket of water. You're going to put some soap in there and you're going to fill it up with water, the bucket.
Right.
Well, if you got to your car and you noticed half the water is gone by the time you got to the car, do you do one of two things? A, you can become the person that runs back to the faucet, the hose, to put water in faster, to run back to the car. So you're trying to save that water so you can get the car clean.
Yeah.
Or two, do you stop and look and say, there's some holes in this bucket. If I plug some of these holes, what more efficiently or what ways can I be more efficient with my money that I'm not transferring this money or water or wealth out, which means I can keep it so I can either spend it in today's lifestyle or I can save it for my future.
Yeah.
So we're going to look at those those areas and help people to stop avoiding maybe some of those losses just where they're transferring wealth. So let's kind of identify maybe some of those wealth transfers, because I think that's kind of critical for people to get an idea of like, what are those?
Okay.
Like where are some of those leaks that I could be having in my financial bucket?
Good.
So let's look at the first one. Taxes. Taxes is a leak. That's a big one.
It's a big one. It's everybody's too. Yes.
Everybody. So here's an example. It says we have a tax practice. We get to see this. And a lot of clients are not paying attention to this, but and I'll give you the example of, let's say someone had $100,000 sitting in their bank account.
Yeah.
Well, 3 years ago, it was earning 0%.
I know.
Zero interest was reported on their tax return.
Right.
Now, if they're getting 5% interest on that $100,000, that's $5,000 that just showed up on their tax return. In a 20% tax bracket, 20% on $5,000 would be $1,000 of taxes. So that means the real return's $4,000. They paid the government $1,000. Now, if anyone's listening out there and says, well, it's not that big a deal, meet me this Saturday. This Saturday, let's get $1,000 cash out of the bank. Let's go down the road, roll the windows down, and let's start throwing $1,000 of cash out the window. It's not that big a deal.
Yeah, let's see. I guarantee you, a lot of other people watching that money coming out of the car are going to think it's a really big deal.
Because I'm going to be standing behind the car collecting that money.
Exactly.
Well, but that's a leak. And it's not the $1,000 that you're giving up. It's that $1,000 that you will never see again, the compounding interest, the growth of that money. That's not just gone for your life, but it's gone for your families and intergenerational.
Yeah,
it has a massive impact. So that's like that's a simple leak to look at, is just taxes. How can you become more efficient with your dollars? Second one is, this is a big one. How do you pay for your home? Interest. So it's just not to the government, it's to the banks. It's interest to financial institutions. Just a small one. I call this a random act one. Going to Starbucks every day. That's a leak. I mean, it is a leak that those coffee double, whatever they make
whatever you get,
used to be $5. Now they're going for $12 to $15. I mean, so those are leaks. So if you just take how you pay for your home, taxes, just some of the miscellaneous spending that can be, those miscellaneous spending can be small little cracks.
Yeah.
I'll tell you one I got rid of personally was I looked at my cable bill and I said, wait a minute, this is really, I'm not using 98% of the stations are not being used. Why am I paying this? That was a crack, just a little, it was like a siphon leak. You could hear it coming out. I said, let's plug that. $150, $200 back in your pocket. That's $24. If it's $200, $2,400 for the year. You can compound that out over time. So it's finding those little leaks that can be costing money, not today, but just for your future. A third one is, how do you fund your retirement accounts? A lot of people are under the belief is, I'm not paying taxes today. Cool. You may not be paying taxes today on how you fund a retirement plan, but you're partnering your money with the government. So you get to be a financial partner with them in the future. And now you get asked the questions, will taxes be higher or lower 10, 15, 30 years in the future?
Yeah.
So retirement plans. And here are just two other ones that are really big ones that are sometimes overlooked. Is one, how do you pay for your kids' college education? How do you pay for, I call them major capital purchases, a car, travel, vacation, weddings? How are you paying for those? So it's looking at all these areas that are major wealth transfers and saying, how can you help just mitigate, reduce, eliminate, and bring that money, some of that money back to you in a more efficient manner? And there are financial strategies and instruments that can be used to help address some of those really, like I say, unknowingly. Sometimes it's knowingly. A wealth transfer can be knowingly. But some are very unknowingly, and majority unnecessarily.
Well,
Like it's the unnecessarily ones we want to really hit up.
yeah, there are a couple of things I want to go back to just for a second, Brian. Okay, and people listening to this should understand what we're talking about is for informational purposes. This is an investment advice. Okay, you want investment advice, either call your financial advisor or call Brian and have a further conversation with him. But the first one has nothing to do with financial advice. The first one is, let's go back to that Starbucks example, because you and I've spoken a number of times, and the point of having money is you should enjoy money, right? So how do you draw the line on saying, well, maybe I go to Starbucks once a week. Where do you sort of, you don't have to eliminate all the things that you enjoy, right? It's just that you want to put some kind of moderation on it, maybe.
Always moderation, absolutely. But it's the excessiveness of something.
Uh,
And the question is on that excessiveness, what is it potentially costing you? What is it potentially costing you? So, like, I have a pure example of when I was younger, 20 years ago. I remember buying 2 shirts, some of these fancy long sleeve, nice shirts. They were $250 each. I was leaving a hotel and I saw
wow.
$500. Paying hotel price. This was dumb, Brian. This is Brian that had leaks
Brian,
in his bucket.
Dumb Brian.
Leaks in his bucket. But I remember leaving and I remember thinking, so cool. Here are these shirts. And as I was driving home, I was on I-4, which is our main highway in Orlando. And I remember doing the math in my head saying $500. If I save this money in compounded interest out at just a basic return, it will double in so many years. 500 will be 1,000, 1,000 will be 2,000, 2 will go to 4. And I had to ask myself, are these shirts worth $4,000? And I said, no. And the girl I was dating at the time, I said, why are you stressing yourself out? I said, because I don't want to give up. I'm holding $4,000 in my hand in the future. I turned around, went back to the Hard Rock Hotel, returned the shirts, got my money back. And it was a lesson for me that made me said, is this really worth that future, giving up that future dollar?
Yeah.
And that was a big lesson for me because every time you spend $1, I'm interrupting the growth of my money. 1, I'm interrupting the growth that it could be growing for me. 1, but 2, I will never see that money again. It's in someone else's. I've transferred that. That's the wealth trend. I've transferred it to somebody else's ecosystem for them to grow it, for them to compound it. And I want that in my own ecosystem growing.
Yeah.
Now, there are things to spend money on. There are experiences. There are travel. There are clothes. There are things. But it's the excessiveness.
Yeah.
Saying you have to look and say, what impact can this have on me? Can it have on me in my future?
So that makes total sense, and that's great. In terms of financial strategies, I mean, how can you help people, in that way? I mean, in terms of, investment tools and things that showing people to put the potential possibilities.
Yeah. So I'm going to back out of that question and I'll come back into it. Let me kind of like take a wide lens and then go wide lens and then we can kind of narrow down to that because I think there's going back to our original thing. It's not necessarily about presenting or having better products that potentially have higher returns. That's what the industry has focused on. Yes, financial instruments are important, but I think there's different questions that need to be answered first. And if individuals know the answers to these 4 questions, then you can really give guidance on the instruments that help align where they are at to get them where they want to be. So let me address those 4 questions because I'd have never heard financial individuals in my industry ask these 4 questions. And if they do ask it, to be able to really present an answer within 15 minutes.
Okay.
Give an answer within 15 minutes to these 4 financial questions. So the first one is, we talk about rate of return, like, oh, what is your rate of return? Well, great. What does that mean? So the question is, what rate of return do you have to earn on your money or investment dollars to be able to retire at your current standard of living that you're living today into the future adjusted for inflation? What rate of return would you need to earn on your current investment dollars for you to live like you are today into the future? That's a really interesting question because it goes back to, you may have a lot of financial instruments, but what are they doing? Who cares what they're doing? What do you really need to be doing? What's your strategy? So this is a strategy question. 2, how much do you need to save on a monthly or annual basis? Now, here's the kicker. To be able to retire at the current standard of living, you're going to keep hearing me say that, current standard of living, that you're living today, adjusted for inflation in the future. Because who wants to live on less in the future? And that's going to be question number 3. So this is the painful one. And this is the one that is not addressed. So the question is, if you don't do anything different today, if you don't do anything different, how much would you have to reduce your standard of living at retirement? And that stage of life, how much would you have to reduce your standard of living by to have your money last your life expectancy? It's a painful one. See, what happens is individuals come out of the gate and say, I need to earn a higher rate of return, take more risk.
Yeah.
I need to be in this financial instrument's not doing it for me, so I need to be in this one by this firm, and all they're doing is shopping these financial products to potentially give them a better return, maybe taking on more risk than they really need to. If we can just answer those first 3 questions, the first 2, rate of return, how much to save. 3, if you don't do anything different, reduce your standard of living by. That's painful. Because a lot of people may come in, Bill, and they say, well, I'm not going to need as much money when I retire. And I'm in that play check stage of life.
Yeah.
When I'm in that stage of life, I'm not going to need as much money. I'm like, well, if that's the case, wouldn't it be great to start getting used to that now? I mean, if you've been accustomed to living on $100,000 and you're saying you're going to live on $60,000 in the future, practice that now. Practice the feeling of living on less today. Because I promise you, in 10, 15, 20 years, it's not going to be the case because all things are going up. Now, there are executives that we have as clients, business owners, people that do make incredible, great incomes, millions, 5 million, incredible. But they have actually learned to have a standard of living much lower than what they're bringing in. And that, because of that lifestyle, that is a reduction. But that's not middle America. That's not where someone's earning 250, 500,000. They've built a lifestyle around that.
Yeah.
So it's addressing that. And the third one
are wise people. I got to say, you have some wise clients if they're able to do that, because most of the people I've met who are making big money on an annual basis,
their lifestyles try to match it.
Their lifestyle actually, ironically, exceeds it. So they end up in the same position as, it's like they don't have enough money. And you're like, you're making this much money. How could you not have enough money? It's like, because, well, they're exceeding their, they have an excessive lifestyle. Back to that excess thing,
Absolutely. And I think you see that in certain industries for individuals that make professional industries, doctors, being an industry, you see that a lot.
Yeah.
But here's the 4th question, which is a really interesting one too, is doing what you're currently doing, how long would you have to work? How long will you have to work to be able to have your current investment dollars last your life expectancy? So when you take those 4 questions and you can get an answer to each one of them, because they all kind of play together of how they balance each other out. Because we're just trying to get back to saying, what if you did nothing different? We just helped you find dollars, tax dollars, how you pay for things. And you were able to save those dollars. You're able to put them back into your wealth. You didn't have to take any more risk on any financial instrument. You didn't have to do anything different. It was just looking at some of the leaks that you had financially.
Yeah.
So that's kind of at the core of what we do. And the reason why that became such a message for us 20 some years ago, getting in the business, 1998, was centered around taxes. It was centered around seeing taxes. And that was just a leak so many people had. Then it led over into retirement, seeing what the government was doing with these government plans. And it just opened up to other areas. Like I started asking clients as they were getting older, in 65, 70, if you could go back and look at certain financial decisions you made in the past, 1 or 2 financial decisions you made and you could have reversed it and not done it, what impact would that have had now in your life?
Oh, that's an interesting question.
Whoa, whoa. You get, and you hear some stories about the impact of how they paid for college, how they did something. They would have done something different. And that impact of what it would have meant having those dollars for their future.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's incredible. So it really taught me at a young age in my 20s and 30s, having these conversations with our clients, how to see money differently. The impact, I'm 49, 26 years in this industry, been around it my whole life, but seeing the impact on I'm going to call it the individuals at 65, 70, 80 years old,
Yeah.
and what that looks like to their future. That's what I've been around for 20 some years. So I've gotten the experience of working with younger generation, but I've seen the older, the more mature generation, sometimes more mature. Some of them are riot. As they should be. They've lived.
Yeah.
And, so it's just seeing that impact and knowing how to have that conversation with my generation today, because it is serious. You will show up in the future. If you're lucky and you will show up at 65, 70, how is that money going to show up for you? And people, a lot of people, I don't need retirement planning. Okay. But I can tell you, being dependent upon the government for that plan, that strategy is not where you want to be. And you're not going to be our ideal client.
No. And the old saying, hope is not a strategy.
Hope is not.
And it's hard, and I've been very, very, very fortunate because I cannot pretend to have practiced what you are preaching.
Most don't.
Yeah, no. So what do you offer? Do you like when you have new clients come in? I mean, people should go back and listen to the first 2 episodes ever of this podcast. If they want to get a really good, solid idea of who you are and what you do. But if I'm a new client and I'm coming in and I say, look, I've been with this financial advisor. I think I'm great. I think I'm good, but I'm just kind of curious. I want to know where I am. I mean, is that an appropriate visit?
Absolutely. It's because we have a tax practice, and that's at our core belief system.
Yeah.
Is looking at taxes, looking at areas that you can become more efficient with your money. We start there as a foundation. So one, we do a portfolio X-ray of looking at the investments, risk, fees, and really taking a look at where are they currently today positioned. So we can answer that first question. What rate of return do you need to be earning? Not what random one you're getting. Where do you need to be? Let's get clarity on that one. Second part is we do a portfolio, MRI X-ray or X-ray on their tax return. So because we have a tax practice, we'll take that existing tax return, strip the information out, and basically we get to see it kind of like in a 3D image. We're like, all right, here's what's going on. Here's where the dollars are. Here's some ideas, and report back into the client of ways to become more efficient with their dollars. What areas, what things could see most CPAs, tax preparers are just that. They're tax preparers.
Yeah.
We like to fall on the side of tax strategists. We're looking for strategies within the tax system and within an individual's their own plan of saying, all right, how can you become more efficient? What areas can you be doing to become a little bit more efficient?
Good.
So, yeah, one of the neat ones is people own mutual funds. This is just a kind of a side little bonus. People own mutual funds,
right?
And they own them in a taxable account. And what happens is these mutual funds have what are called embedded gains, or gains that are in this fund. Now, you as the client may never have sold the fund, but they buy and sell internally. And when they do that, they distribute out, come into the year, passive capital gains. You get these capital gains that come out. Well, guess what? You never sold the fund. You didn't buy or sell. They did it. Now you're paying taxes on it. You're on the hook.
Ooh.
Here's the worst part, Bill. The fund could actually be down because the market went down in value and they were taking gain. So you're paying taxes on a value that could be down. So it's looking at inefficiencies like that in other areas too, just to say, all right, can you be doing this a little bit different? And does it help go answer those 4 critical questions? Because those questions are helping you drive what the future looks like, where you are today, where you're going to be in the future. And if we can be a little bit more efficient, help avoid some losses, look at dollars transferred unknowingly and necessarily, well, let's put those dollars back in your wealth pocket.
Exactly. So if people want to reach out to you and have that conversation, how'd they get a hold of you?
Absolutely. So let's go to Repple, R-E-P-P-L-E, wealthgroup.com. That's at repplewealthgroup.com. And we look forward to speaking with you and bringing clarity and direction to your financial future.
Yeah. And I would encourage people who are listening to do just that. I can tell you, this is Bryan. And this is what you get. You get an engaged, energetic person. This isn't a dull, like, I can barely stay awake kind of meeting. So do it. The other thing you can do that's really simple and easy right now is hit out and hit the subscribe button. Follow the podcast. In doing that, every time Bryan drops a new episode, you are notified. You can give it a listen. And if you don't believe me, you can give it a listen and you'll be like, oh, that dude was right. Whoever that guy is back there behind the camera, he was right. And if you like it, tell people about it. Word of mouth promotion would be most appreciated, and we'd thank you for that. Until next time, I'm Bill Tucker, the guy behind the camera, the microphone, or whatever it is I'm behind here. Thanking you for taking the time to listen today on behalf of myself and Bryan and everybody at the Repple Wealth Management Group. Thank you. And until next time, I want to remind you that you can go out today and make today a great day or not. It's your choice. Choose wisely. Thanks for taking the time to listen. We'll see you next time.